vanishes, it excites quite a lot of people to try to find out what the answer is, because we don't like mysteries. We don't like aeroplanes with 239 people on board vanishing and nobody can say what's happened to them. So of course people are going to come up with all sorts of theories as to what's been going on. Some people might even call them conspiracy theories.
Well, there have been many of those, but, you know, for example, the finger would first of all point to mechanical issues with the plane, and that's been investigated. And also, there was a lot of backstory research done on the flight crew, in particular the pilot. They checked out a simulator that he'd used, didn't they? And we never really got any great conclusions about the flight crew and what part they may have played in this.
No, exactly. There are questions, and it's the fact that there are questions as yet unanswered, or not answered satisfactorily. There are sort of open-ended questions, like, what was the pilot, Mr. Ahmed Shah? What was he doing with a flight simulator? Well, he's a pilot, he could legitimately have a flight simulator, but when it was examined and it was found that he had practiced flying to Diego Garcia, which is a little island south of India, which used to be owned by Britain, is now used by the US as a Air Force base, and is off limits to virtually everybody else. But this pilot was practicing flying there, so of course that would raise a legitimate question. Well, did he fly the plane there? It had enough fuel to reach Diego Garcia from Kuala Lumpur, where it took off, allegedly flying up into China. That hasn't been answered, and one of the other flight simulator tracks that was on there was flying into the southern Indian Ocean. Well, why would you want to fly into southern Indian Ocean? There's nothing there except a couple of small islands called Amsterdam and St. Paul, which are owned by France, which is about 1,000 miles west of where the plane is alleged to have ditched in the sea.
And presumably those places were beyond or at the limits of the range of that aircraft, were they?
Yes, they would be virtually beyond the range of the aircraft. But the other problem was that there was no landing strip on any of the islands, so he obviously wasn't going there. If he was in trouble and flying on the route that we're told he was flying, i.e. south from Malaysia, and if he was in trouble and wanted to land, he could have reached Perth in Western Australia quite easily, and that has got an airport big enough to land a 777 on. Obviously, it's an international airport. If it has vanished, and we're told it's vanished at 35 degrees south and 92 degrees east, which is basically halfway between Australia and Madagascar on a map below the equator.
And when you say vanished, that is not the actual point at which the plane may have just disappeared. It is, isn't it, the limit at which our technology could track it? There are places on this earth where it is hard to track, unbelievably, where it's difficult to track something if you're in air traffic control.
Oh yes, yeah, there are. But most of the technology we're referring to in tracking this plane are the Inmarsat satellites, which do record automatically transmissions from all aircraft, because they have to maintain a technical update on the condition of the engines and the condition of the plane should there be found to be any problems. Most of the evidence as to where this plane went came from those tracks using the Inmarsat satellites and the recordings of what they were picking up from the plane, which automatically transmits. It's not something which is done by the pilot, or it's not done like switching on a switch. It's done automatically by extrapolating from where the information was received from and the time difference between the transmission from the plane to the satellite. They identified that it was flying on a southerly track from Malaysia, basically heading for Antarctica. Well, it didn't have enough fuel to reach Antarctica, so it must have ditched in the sea, and that is where this new facility or this new operation is coming into effect. It's the boat that is being used is called the Seabed Constructor.
All right, we'll get into that in a moment, because I want to talk, at some length about this new effort and the basis upon which it's being done, which is quite extraordinary, but understandable at this length of time. It's nearly 4 years, and we still don't have answers. I think it will surprise a lot of people, though, Marcus, that it is possible for something to simply disappear when we have a girdle of satellites around this Earth. Supposedly, we can be photographed in our garden from something that is up in space looking down on us. They could, if you had a transistor radio, as they used to call them, next to you in your garden on a sunny day. Supposedly a satellite could zoom down on you, and yet we were not able to know the moment at which whatever fate had befallen this plane transpired. We were not able to know with any certainty what happened to it. All we know is a point at which we ceased to be able to track it with the technology that we use for tracking planes. It's bizarre.
It is. But there are two things here. One is that we haven't been told what has happened to the plane. Now, this makes an assumption that the technology that we know exists and that we know about, you mentioned that a satellite can photograph you sitting in your garden. If you have a transistor radio, can show that. It's that famous phrase that was used many years ago, that some of the satellites are powerful enough or have enough resolution to be able to read a newspaper headline from space, which is quite a good illustration of the capacity of a satellite. Yes, a newspaper headline from space, basically you can read something that's 6 inches high from about 250 miles up. Now that sort of technology is pretty spectacular. Are we being told everything which is known about this particular plane? Yes, the technology exists, and we assume that it is all-encompassing. We assume that it covers the whole planet. And if it's a geosynchronous satellite, i.e. set in one position above Earth and orbits at the same speed the Earth rotates, so it stays in one position. If it's that sort of satellite, yes, it could identify something flying across the Indian Ocean, if it was able to do so. What we don't know are the capacity of, shall we say, the military-style satellites, the spy satellites, which have much more advanced capacity. What we're told and what actually exists are two different things. It is quite possible that information does exist in some database somewhere, in some military storage facility, but they do not wish the public to know that they have this, because it would then give the information out to the public as to how good their capacity to identify something at a distance is. They don't want to know that. Just as a brief aside, last week there was the launch of a satellite called the Zuma satellite, which nobody knows very much about. But
this was one of the Elon Musk satellites, wasn't it? One of the launches that happened last week. So this is one of the private ventures, but being done for the US government in secret.
Yeah, and nobody knows what it was doing, nobody knows where it was supposed to go, nobody knows what its capacity was. But given that it was supposed to have cost $1 billion, we can assume it was a fairly complex and technical piece of kit. But nobody knows anything about it. So we've got this ridiculous situation where we're spending a lot of money on technology, but it is not allowed for us to know what it can and can't do. So if we say that, yes, it is quite possible that people do know what happened to flight MH370, that it did vanish at a particular place, but in order for us to know that, we would then ask the next question, well, how do you know that? Why do you know that? And why haven't you told us before?
So do you believe that, and look, I believe anything is possible. That's why we have so many conspiracy theories in this world. And that's why we talk about them here. That it's actually possible for somebody somewhere to know more about this than we've been told and not be willing to divulge it, because in divulging it, it would tell the world exactly the level of surveillance that we're all under. So they're not willing to do that. But in the meantime, millions of US dollars have been expended by official search efforts that are seemingly unconnected with that secret knowledge that we think might exist. There would seem to be two opposite poles working apart from each other separately.
Yes, because the spending of, I think the figure at the moment stands at $200 million, the cost of the search for MH370. Now that figure represents the amount of salaries that are being paid to the people involved. So we're talking several thousand people involved in the ships and the aircraft and the rest of it. That is small change when you compare it to the cost of, we just mentioned the Zuma satellite, $1 billion. it's allowing plausible deniability. It's quite possible for a lot of organizations, military, technical organizations, say, look, we're putting a lot of effort into trying to find this plane. Yes, they are. They're putting a lot of effort into it. And they're quite likely to be working at the limits of their own technology. What they don't know is the technology available to other people who are a little bit more secretive about it.
This is remarkable. I mean, look, if you just look at a quote from the Malaysian Transport Minister, Leo Tiong. Leo Tiong said that the country had an unwavering commitment to solving the mystery of MH370. In other words, at least the Malaysian government says that it is committed on some level, even though the search was suspended a year ago, to working out exactly what happened. It just is a question that hangs in the air for all of us, literally.
Threshold reached.
You know, what exactly?
Reached
up to
20
this point,
conductive ceramics. Threshold set at 10.
What has been done? How are numbers being crunched? How is data being analysed? What questions are being asked of whom? As a public, we constantly are bombarded with news stories. What's happening in Hollywood? Here in Europe, we've got the Brexit story. There's going to be a royal wedding this year. So there are a million things constantly happening that takes this away from the top of the news agenda. But it's slowly bubbled away for 4 years. It is a mystery, an enigma. It is wheels within wheels, isn't it? It's a bizarre spiral that we're looking at here. We're going to talk about the latest developments in this in just a moment, and also get a bit of a steer about what's in the latest edition of Nexus magazine with Marcus Allen, the editor thereof, an old friend of this show for many years, here on the Unexplained at Talk Radio.
Talk Radio, 24-hour radio debate and entertainment.
Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
If you're looking for an excellent exchange rate in sterling, or want to bag a big money bargain in deal, or score a super sale saving in Poundbury, don't miss Julia's Deal of the Day every morning from 6:30 on Julia Hartley Brewer at Breakfast with Sun Savers. Get insider hints on the nation's hottest high street scoops, top money-saving tips, and insider consumer news and advice from the Sun's Tara Evans, live in the studio. You can't afford to miss Julia's Deal of the Day, weekday mornings from 6:30 on Talk Radio with Sun Savers. Welcome to the good stuff.
Where do you charge an electric car?
How quickly can I do it?
How far can you go on one charge?
How much can I save?
Can I charge it at home?
Do I need a house with a drive? Can you get an electric shock off? If I plug it on mobile phone, will the car's battery run out?
Can they go in car washes?
Got questions about owning an electric car? Get the answers at goultralow.com.
We love home. From those wooden floorboards we sanded down to the chrome fixtures and fittings that took ages to find. But if you're in the trade, you know there's more to home than just plumbing, electrics, or a lick of paint. Homes are getting smart. We've created the Nest Learning Thermostat and Nest Cam security cameras. Intelligent technology in your home you can control with your phone. Become your customer's smart home provider and help grow your business with Nest Pro at nest.com/EU/pro.
Right, your car's all ready. Great. Who's that sticking out of the engine? Oh, yes, Simon. He's just giving our thorough last check. He does get stuck in. Yeah. Right, grab a leg. Oh, okay. Come on, Simon.
Because we know every Nissan back to front, you get even greater peace of mind. So visit Nissan's used car event from the 27th of December to the 15th of January and get a deposit contribution of up to £750, plus 2 years servicing and selected nearly new vehicles bought with Nissan Finance. 9.9% APR representative. Nissan Finance. Subject to status and over 18s. Participating dealers. T's and C's apply. See nissanusedcars.co.uk. Google Nissan Cared For to find your nearest dealer.
Landlords. Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Are you ready for this? Or a bit of this? And obviously this.
Mum, please can I have another ice cream?
If you've been nodding along, then it's time you joined the millions of others with the Sun Hauls from £9.50. Haul yeah! Pick up the Sun and start collecting today. T's and C's apply.
How does NCS make me feel?
When I see Mum and Dad's faces as I tell them I'm cooking tonight, it's like, yes!
When I perform CPR and save that man's life, who cares if he's plastic? It's like, oh yeah!
When I realise I'm not scared of heights, I love them! It's like, woohoo!
In a word, NCS makes me feel unstoppable. Search NCS to find out more.
The Unexplained with Howard Hughes on Talk Radio.
The Unexplained Talk Radio, Howard Hughes here, in the midnight hour here, talking about one of the deepest and darkest mysteries in aviation. Possibly the greatest mystery in aviation there has ever been, until it's solved, which one day we hope that it will be. We said, Marcus Allen from Nexus Magazine, before we took our break, that the Malaysian government is committed to solving the mystery. But in these years, there's been a lot of work done, as we said. The pilot and his interest in a couple of locations which he played out on his simulator, that is a line of inquiry that seems to have gone cold. Nobody talks about that anymore, do they?
When things like that come up, yes, it's fascinating how something that looks like it's a potential lead, it's possible, it's an interesting area, people certainly have a fascination in this area, suddenly it goes cold. Why is that? Why has it gone cold? Is it that there is nothing to it? Is it that it's been investigated and found to be completely innocent and there's no explanation required? It doesn't add to the story that we've been told about MH370. Or is it that they have found something and that they can't announce it because it would then blow a huge hole in the official story?
Well, I can see a whole conspiracy theory emerging around this new effort to find it. But we have to say that wreckage, now you would expect wreckage to be found in profusion. It doesn't matter how big the area is. I was born in Liverpool. Parts of my family were involved in things maritime, so I know a little bit about this. But, sailors and people who go to sea always say that the sea or the ocean, it's only a question of scale, always gives up its dead and will always eventually reveal its secrets to you. But in this case, there has been very little wreckage actually found. There was a part of a wing apparently found, we think, on the island of Réunion, a French island. But apart from that and a few other bits and pieces, nothing very much.
Well, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? That's actually not totally correct. When the plane went down, obviously a lot of people were trying to find evidence for it, and a French satellite photographed an area of sea very close to where the search is now being concentrated. Photographed this area of sea just after the plane vanished, and there were about 20 pieces of wreckage identified in this photograph. Now, because the photograph wasn't particularly clear, it was dismissed. And you think, oh, that's a bit odd. A few months later, the investigators went back to the French and said, look, please can you produce a clearer image? Can you enhance it? Can we actually try to see what is in that picture? Because I think you've identified something. And yes, they did. They identified that it was human manufactured items. Obviously they couldn't say where it came from, but it's more than a coincidence that it looked like it was from an aircraft. Now, when an aircraft crashes into the sea, a lot of the contents of the aircraft actually float, partly because they're designed to float, like the seat cushions. That's what you use if you do dish into the sea. You take your seat cushion as a life raft almost. So a lot of an aircraft will float on the sea, and that's what you look for. You look for the wreckage. In addition to that, as far as I know, it hasn't been followed up because there's not a great deal that can be done. But at least if they start from that position, you can then do what's called drift analysis, which is to look at the ocean currents. We know how fast they move and where they move to and from. And following the disappearance of MH370, up to 20 individual pieces of wreckage have been recovered from Tanzania, from Madagascar, and from Réunion Island, which is to the east of Madagascar. This is in keeping with the drift pattern of the ocean at that point. If a plane had gone down and wreckage had been released from the plane and it had floated, it would have floated for a particular period of time before it reached a particular landfall. All of that can be calculated and all of that's known. There have been the largest single piece of identifiable wreckage is called a flaperon, which is the piece of the wing, the trailing edge of the wing, which is basically what controls the way the plane flies, whether it goes up or down. This is a maneuverable piece of the wing. It's a thing when you sit on a plane, look out the window, you see them going up and down as they land.
Yes, you can see this thing extending, and it basically controls, I think, the attitude of the plane, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And this was found. I think this particular piece was found on Reunion Island, because what is interesting is that there is actually an individual. His name is Blaine Gibson. He's an American, and he's made it his mission, because he has the time and the finances to do it. He's made it his mission to try to find as many pieces of wreckage as he can. Now, it's interesting that he's looking in this area. He's found about 10, 12 additional pieces of wreckage.
And as far as we know, are they definitively from this plane?
Well, that's one of the points that he makes. He's identified pieces of wreckage. He doesn't know. Obviously, you pick a piece of wreckage up off the beach. It doesn't say MH370 on it. It'll have a part number. That's how that flaperon thing was identified. Every individual piece of an aircraft has a part number stamped on it. And if you then check with the manufacturer, he can tell you what that part number was part of, which plane it was part of. And this was why it was confirmed that that particular part was part of MH370. So the indication is that the plane crashed into the sea around this particular area to the west of Australia and to the east of Madagascar.
Right, so we have to be very clear here, because I don't think the media has been particularly, certainly in following things up, that pieces of wreckage have been found that are definitely traceable to MH370, and I would presume then, if they were definitely traceable to MH370, the way that those pieces have been broken off can, as we've watched all these documentaries on television, tell us a little bit about how that flight came to its unfortunate end.
Oh yes, it can. It can. By examining it closely, where the position of certain components in the part, if it's a big enough part, as this piece of wing was quite big. Also, some of the other parts which appear to come from a plane. I think there's one which has the Rolls-Royce signature, Rolls-Royce trademark on it. Has some what appears to be charring, as if it has been burnt, which again hasn't been confirmed. But just to come back to the
no, this is. I'm sorry to stop you there, because this was another cul-de-sac in the investigation. I remember doing a story on news a while ago. It's certainly more than a year ago. That the engines. Somebody was saying. I remember hearing somebody talking about this story, but the basis of it is that the engines independently report back to the manufacturers of the engines their status, because they want to know how their product is performing. Now, that story about that possibility was reported and then went away. Those engines, I think, could have held vital clues, but we don't seem to know very much about the message they were giving.
Exactly. It's quite true, yes. All engines, especially Rolls-Royce engines, they report back via satellite, obviously, to headquarters in England, because Rolls-Royce obviously want to know if a plane's engines are causing problem, and when the plane lands they can do something about it. So yes, these are continually transmitted technical information, presumably to do with rotation speed and pressures and internal activity of the engine, which would indicate if there was a problem. So yes, these are being transmitted. You're quite right. Why haven't we heard more about that? Because that is a routine part of all aircraft maintenance schedules, that they have to know what's happened to the engines. The engines are the most important part of the plane.
And the fact that we're getting items washed up from the tsunami, and we're getting items that wash up on coastlines from the terrible events in Japan a few years ago that affected the Fukushima reactor, those things are crossing the Atlantic. And some of those things that wash up have identifying marks on them. Isn't it strange that not a passport, not a piece of documentation, not a magazine relating specifically to that flight, not a uniform that might have been identifiable back, not a pair of shoes that might have been identifiable, those things have not been found, even though the ocean, as we said, tends to give up its secrets in the end. It may take years to happen, but it does happen.
Oh, it does. It does. And I'm pretty sure that we will. Now, whether something like a passport or a book or a magazine or something relatively soft, of relatively soft material, would survive in the conditions that we know exist in the open ocean is may be debatable because, I mean, just to take a rather extreme example, the Titanic, which we know is at 3 miles below the surface of the Atlantic, has almost completely vanished, and that's only just over 100 years after it sank. The open ocean is a very unpleasant environment for anything to survive much in. Paper wouldn't survive very long. Metal will survive if it'll float. Foam and modern plastics will survive, as we know from the publicity given to the plastics in the ocean.
But these are heartbreaking things to talk about. But the personal effects that would have been in the hold of the passengers, surely some of those may have survived and floated and gone somewhere. You know, the currents that operate in that area are strong currents, and they go in one predictable direction.
They do, but whether something in the hold of a plane would then, because it's at about 6,000 feet, I think, is the depth at the point that they're looking at the moment. It's quite a long way down. Whether something would have been able to float to the surface and then survive sufficient time on the surface to be identifiable, I don't know. I mean, that would be a matter for a forensic examination.
And what about the flight recorders that are designed to withstand the impact of very severe crashes and still transmit their data? What happened to the flight recorders?
That's the holy grail of this search, are the flight recorders. You know, it's the old joke, if the flight recorders will survive virtually any crash, why isn't the whole plane made out of them? But then, would the flight recorders, if they are recoverable, that is basically what they're going to be looking for. There are 2 flight recorders. One records the voice transmission, one records the technical detail of the aircraft itself. And though they're called black boxes, they're actually they're coloured bright orange so they can be identified more easily. That's the holy grail of any search, is to find the flight recorders, because that will give the answer to what happened, why something happened.
But they've certainly stopped transmitting now, haven't they?
Oh, they stopped transmitting after, I think it's 30 days. They have an internal battery which will last for 30 days.
And again, amazing, where we have reception equipment that is able to receive signals from Mars. We couldn't receive the signals from these black boxes.
I know. Again, that's one of those unanswered questions which people will then start extrapolating. Well, surely if we can get a signal from Mars, or the Moon even, we can get a signal from that far, surely we can hear something that's transmitting quite close by. And maybe because of economic constraints and commercial activity in terms of the manufacture of a black box, because they're obviously expensive pieces of equipment, there would be limitations on how long something can transmit for and how far, over what distance it could transmit, because that will be determined by the battery power and the battery life that is on board. Most black boxes will be recovered on land, and that's quite straightforward. Because you can get close enough to it. If you don't know where the black box is, you don't know how you can record it. So you could say, well, why don't we just make something that will pick up with our modern, lovely new shiny technology? Surely we can do something better than we've got.
Well, you would have thought so, because remember, these areas are areas that, you know, they don't have land masses in them of any great size, and there is nothing much going to be transmitting across those vast areas of ocean. So a signal, if there is one, is going to stand out, or should, like a sore thumb. I mean, this particular horse has bolted now because, as you say, they will have stopped transmitting a long time ago. But it just, again, makes one question. I'm not an expert, and you're not directly involved in the search. We don't know how it wasn't possible to detect even the faintest signal.
I know. That is one of the big mysteries of it. It's almost like there is a gap between what we're told the technology can achieve and what it actually can achieve, i.e. between the words and the actions. And that point you made a short while ago, where the Malaysian government say they will do whatever they can to find this plane, and their actual activity in doing it are 2 different things. All right, there may be money involved, there may be political pressure.
Well, this was not getting anywhere, and it was expending a lot of money. It was, and it was always made very clear to us that this was a multinational operation. But now the latest development, as we get onto this, the news this week, is that the Malaysian government is very much in control of this, and they were the ones who announced, because it's their call, that the search would be resumed after it did a deal with a company called Ocean Infinity, who will, extraordinarily, I've never heard of a case like this, they will only be paid if they actually find the wreckage, if they actually find the plane. So they must be pretty confident to spend the amount of money that they're going to have to spend, that they're going to find it.
Yes, it would certainly seem so. As you say, I think it's the first time it's ever been agreed, a no find, no fee operation. They will have to finance the ship and the crew on board and the expense of getting to the place and all the equipment that they're going to be using. Yes, you think that they're probably going to be quite certain that they can find it.
All right, let's unpick some of the details of this new search and the vessel involved in it, Marcus. You know, this is a fascinating story, and because there are so many people on board this plane, your heart has to go out to the families who don't have the answer, the closure that they need. We'll talk some more about this with Marcus Allen from Nexus Magazine, coming next to The Unexplained at Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
If you're looking for an excellent exchange rate in sterling, or want to bag a big money bargaining deal, or score a super sale saving in Poundbury, don't miss Julia's deal of the day every morning from 6:30 on Julia Hartley Brewer and Breakfast with Sun Savers. Get insider hints on the nation's hottest high street scoops, top money-saving tips, and insider consumer news and advice from the Sun's Tara Evans, live in the studio. You can't afford to miss Julia's deal of the day. Weekday mornings from 6:30 on Talk Radio with Sun Savers. Welcome to the good stuff.
When I decided to teach, I had a lot of worries. Am I going to be good enough?
Am I going to be able to control a class?
But I had an absolutely brilliant mentor who really developed my confidence. She was everything I kind of aspired to be. He was the backbone of my training.
Teaching has a massive support network.
I wouldn't be doing anything else. It's the best job in the world. I chose to teach.
As a trainee teacher, you'll get great support, including a mentor to build your confidence. Apply now to train. Search Apply to Teach.
Nothing to see here. Just a regular retriever eating his food, doing his thing while you're out doing yours. Not raiding the bin. And no little surprises left on the floor. What a good boy. Nothing to see here means nothing to worry about. With the new Hive-View smart indoor camera, you can check on your home from your phone wherever you are. Search Hive to discover more. Hive. Let's get living. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Top trade picks at TradePoint to kickstart 2018. Get a DeWalt contractor chest for just £30. Excludes VAT at 20%. Trade on.
Yes, you can. More specifically, you can in Jan. More specifically, you can get a car in Jan. More specifically, cars in the Fiat 500 range are yours from just £139 per month plus initial rental of $973. That's the lovely little Fiat 500, the spacious Fiat 500L, or the go-anywhere Fiat 500X. Offers end soon. More specifically, don't hang about. Personal contract hire offer available on the Fiat 500 range until the 31st of March 2018. Initial rental and monthly payments will vary depending on version. 48-month term and 6,000 miles PA, subject to status, leases.
Are you ready for this? Or a bit of this? And obviously this.
Mom, please can I have another ice cream?
If you've been nodding along, then it's time you joined the millions of others with the Sun Holes from £9.50. Hole yeah! Pick up the Sun and start collecting today. T's and C's apply.
As a kid, it was football or I weren't interested. Didn't bode well for my grades. And when my trials went the way of my GCSEs, I was lost. But then I found the Navy, who showed me that teams aren't always made of 11, and there's more than one type of goal. It opened my eyes to more opportunities. I still play football weekly, but there's far more to my game now. I'm Nathan, born in London, made in the Royal Navy. Start your journey. Search Made in the Royal Navy.
The Late Night Alternative with Ian Lee. Tomorrow night from 10 on Talk Radio.
Experience the unconventional.
Hello.
The unpredictable.
What I'm going to say sounds ridiculous.
And the completely unorthodox.
Don't you think that's a bit weird?
With rule-free Ian Lee.
Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely.
Tomorrow night from 10.
I was just trying to generate a bit of content.
On Talk Radio.
The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway. On Talk Radio, we'll get you talking. Listen up, comrades of the world. Unite.
Our glorious leader, George Galloway, was the mother of all
old talk shows. The switchboard is lighting up.
Controversial conversation and cutting-edge current affairs comment with the notorious B.I.G.G. Listen, this guy's a nightmare. He's not a great guy, folks.
The mother of all talk shows with George Galloway. Friday night from 7 on Talk Radio.
Tiny dino hands.
The Unexplained with Howard Hughes on Talk Radio.
The Unexplained, Talk Radio, Howard Hughes. If you want to contact me, go to my website. It is theunexplained.tv. Follow the link and you can send me a message from there. If you have any questions that I should have asked in this segment, then we'll be covering this story again. Of course we will. You know, we'll touch on it at least once a year, maybe twice, because it is a story that, sadly for those involved, never goes away. It's been 4 years since MH370 vanished, with 239 people on board. One of the pinnacles, miracles of modern technology simply disappears, and there have been few pieces of wreckage found and nothing that definitively tells us exactly what happened to this plane. And as we were saying before we went to the break, Marcus, the latest development is the Malaysian government has done a deal. It's almost like a sale or return deal, that if this company with its vessel, and you know more about the technicals of this than I do, if they find it, they will be paid. If they don't find it, they won't get a cent. It is an extraordinary deal.
It is. It's extraordinary, because either they're very confident about being able to find it, because we're talking millions of dollars of costs. It's rather like trying to find treasure, isn't it? If you find it, you're going to get very rich indeed. If you don't find it, well, it's cost a lot of money, it's been great fun, but let's try somewhere else. Yeah, it's Ocean Infinity is the company that is going to be doing the search, and the deal that they've done, a no find, no fee deal.
Do they have a track record of this kind of thing? Presumably they do.
Oh, they do. Yes, they're extremely professional in what they do, and what their secret weapon, if you like, is the autonomous underwater vehicles. They basically look like bright orange torpedoes, and they are, as the title says, autonomous. They're not tethered to the ship. They go where they want to go. They're directed, and they have a great deal of technology on board as to what they're looking for.
These are the sorts of things that I think have been used in the past in the Titanic explorations. They're able to go down to depths that perhaps people would find it hard to withstand. They're able to take risks that people wouldn't be able to take. So this is technology. It's surprising, isn't it, though, we've had to wait nearly 4 years for this technology to be used.
That is one of the strange things about it, because you'd think that this would be the first thing to be used, but maybe it's because they didn't know where to start looking. I mean, these autonomous vehicles, they can cover quite big areas, and we're told that the search area that they're now going to be looking at is 25,000 square kilometers, which is quite a big area if you think about it. It's an area in terms 25 kilometers wide by 1,000 kilometers long. Now, in order to cover that area with side scanning radar, with underwater photography, with all the technology that's available to them to identify an unexplained object on the seabed, where it's completely dark, obviously, so it's going to be a very, very tricky situation. It's basically all done with radio and radar. By being able to do this, they can cover 1,200 square kilometers a day with these vehicles, so they should be able to do about 2 weeks. They should be able to cover the whole area, because if they don't find something within 90 days, the whole deal's off. It's finished. They've got to do it fairly rapidly. And the start date is next week, when the actual ship going out there is called the Seabed Constructor. And it's virtually on site now. It's 35 degrees south, 92 degrees west is the area they're going to be starting to look at.
Well, I might be wrong about this. I think some of the technology here is out of South Africa, from what I understand. And the great expertise that the people in South Africa have, because they use it constantly, is the expertise in finding gems on the seabed off South Africa. So there is a certain amount of expertise there, if I'm right about that.
Yes, that is certainly an area that they've been involved with, because obviously finding gems on a seabed, there's no reason why you can't find gems on the seabed any more than you can find them on land. If you have the technology to do it on the seabed, you can almost pick them up off the seabed itself.
Now, people have been surprised at the model being used for this. In other words, no win, no fee is the way you would put it if it was a legal case. But this is something, apparently, even though it may seem new to us, in the maritime industry, it's been something that has a long history to it, hundreds of years. It's called no cure, no pay. And, you know, we haven't been reading about it, but apparently this is something that has a long history to it. So although it's exceptional in a case like this, it is not unknown to the industry.
No, exactly. Well, it's the same. It's the same with shipwrecks. If your boat hits the land or springs a leak and it's basically wrecked, and you have a tug that will go out to get that ship and try to return it to port. If it doesn't return it to port, it doesn't get paid. The idea is that it will do what it can to recover the ship, but if there's no success, then there's no pay for it.
And the BBC reported if the plane is found in the first 5,000 square kilometres, 1,930 square miles of the search area, a fee of $20 million, £15 million at the moment will be paid. And apparently the deal means that this sum will increase incrementally up to $70 million, £52 million. But all the searches, as you say, must be completed in roughly 3 months, 90 days.
That's right. And 90 days is the time limit. Now, obviously, if they find it very fast, if they get lucky and get it almost immediately, obviously they won't incur so much expense as they would if they have to cover a much larger search area. So it's reasonable that there should be an increasing fee if they have to go and search bigger areas.
And how do they prove this? How will the proof? There must be something that they've been told. You're looking for this. You're looking for something with a logo on it, or you're looking for something that is identifiably from that particular aircraft in order for us to pay out.
I think if they find the aircraft or they find any part of the aircraft that can be identified, and the technology on board these UAVs is pretty sophisticated. Most of the seafloor is covered in not very much, a few rocks maybe, a few lumps of mud and various other things which are easily identifiable. There's something on the seabed which is not what you would expect to find. They could reasonably say, yes, we have found the plane. As soon as they found the plane, then there are much more sophisticated pieces of kit which can go down to actually search the plane, in the same way that the Titanic was searched by remotely operated vehicles, which can be steered, which can see what they're looking at.
But the Titanic is a different case, though, because it is officially deemed to be a grave, so vast amounts of material have not been brought up from there, and a lot of it has been left undisturbed. These people will be specifically tasked with getting items that not only will identify the wreckage as being from the plane, but also items that will give a clue as to what exactly happened.
Exactly, and they would almost certainly be looking for the black boxes, which they know if they find the fuselage of the plane, if it hasn't broken up completely, if they find the fuselage, they can then identify where on the fuselage the black boxes were installed, and they would then look into those particular areas. They wouldn't necessarily go for anything else, because as you say, there are 239 individuals who were on this plane when it vanished. It may well become a maritime grave, but they will need to find what has happened to the plane, the technical side of it. So looking for the black boxes is what will be the first order of prominence in the search. And one of them was stored near the cockpit, and the other was stored at the back of the plane. So they've got two areas to find.
I mean, neither of us knows the answer to this, I suspect, but you might have more of a clue than I do. Has anything changed with flights on that route or other routes of that kind since this happened to make planes more traceable?
As far as I know, it hasn't. I've seen no announcements that planes will carry particular additional equipment.
Well, that's extraordinary if that is so. Maybe somebody listening tonight will know different, but if that is so, that is quite extraordinary.
But you would also thought that given the technology we have with the satellites that we know exist and can record it, that flight information is not automatically transmitted as a plane is in the air. That information about the plane, its condition, its direction, its height, and all the rest of it, is not transmitted automatically, because that is what's recorded in the black boxes. Surely technology now exists where you can record the information that would be in a black box on a piece of tape or a hard drive. You could transmit it in real time to a satellite and it could be recorded on land. That would be the most sensible development.
Yes, I mean, that's so obvious, and I hadn't thought of that. Why these things are not transmitting. I think there is some technology of that kind coming out. I seem to remember seeing something on Discovery Channel or somewhere about this, where black boxes in future will be transmitting their data as well as recording their data on board. It does seem very 1950s, 1960s that we have to look for a physical box that's been recording a thing on board, something that has come into a calamity. That is extraordinary. So maybe that needs to be looked at. It's a fascinating case, and we both agree that our hearts go out to the families of the people who've been grieving for 4 years, nearly, without any kind of great definitive breakthrough in this that would at least give them some closure. It's a fascinating and a sad case all at once, Marcus, isn't it?
It is indeed. It is. As you say, we will find the answer one day, because the answer to virtually everything is somewhere out there. It's a matter of identifying it and getting through the fog of confusion, which does tend to overtake some of these events, because there are vested interests behind the scenes, which we really know very little about how much influence they can exert.
I think we need to talk to somebody from that firm, Ocean Infinity, and try and get some details of this search and maybe connect with somebody on that ship. And maybe we can do that. I think that would be a first, so we'll get on to that. Nexus Magazine, Marcus, you and I have communed and talked about Nexus Magazine on this show for 12 years this year. More, actually. I think it's 14 years now. So it's only fair for me to ask you, what is in the current edition of Nexus Magazine that may well be of interest to the listening public?
Well, it is still being worked on as we speak.
Give us a taste.
Right. The UFO sighting, remember that one that caused all the excitement, where the US Air Force pilot came on and publicly...
This is the one that came out with the revelations that America had a $20 million program that ran for 5 years in secret, investigating these things, and there was one pilot, in fact I think there were 2 pilots, but there was one in particular who made the news, who said in the measured tones that pilots use, military pilots use, that whatever they were looking at was clearly not from here, because we don't have technology like that.
Exactly. Yeah, he was saying that, and said it quite clearly. And you'd expect a trained U.S. Air Force pilot to know what he's looking at and can make reasonable assumptions about the technology involved. And I think what he said was almost eye-opening in the fact that he was saying it's not from here, it's not one of ours. Now, either he is playing a very good game of double bluff, but then why would you bother? Why even announce it if you don't want to try and discuss it? There are plenty of people who have identified what's been going on with this thing as being not one of ours. So if it's not one of ours, where did it come from? And who are these people flying at will in our airspace? Good heavens, where's all this defence that we're told is so impressive these days?
And where exactly are our taxpayer pounds and dollars going? One of the things that made the news at the top of this show a couple of hours ago that you won't have heard, Marcus, but there was a report of strange lights, I think they were, over Basingstoke. And reading the article about this that appeared this week, Basingstoke apparently has been a bit of a UFO hotspot over the years. I don't know if you're aware of that at Nexus Magazine.
It's not, no, to be honest, no, I'm not.
Well, listen, that'll be for our next conversation, I think. And we talked at Christmas, when we did our special show here, about developments that relate to who we are and what we are, being discovered in various far-flung places of this planet. In other words, the whole idea that we are much older and perhaps had much more sophisticated technology thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years ago than perhaps we understood. We had a very clear idea of where we came from and how we arose in this world. And all of that's being challenged, as we discussed on that Christmas show. So I guess that's a theme you're going to be looking at this year.
Oh, definitely, definitely. There's so much now being uncovered, being discovered, and being talked about. And given the great benefit of modern technology, specifically YouTube, where you can observe so many completely different things, but they all appear to have a common ground, that they are technology which we can't utilize today. For instance, the famous temple of Kailash in India, carved out of solid rock, 400 feet long, 150 foot wide, but 100 foot high. It's not blocks of rock put one on top of the other, it's carved from the top down.
And what about all these stories? I mean, we're running out of time, and it's a whole other subject for us to talk about, of people discovering laptops buried in rock, bits of technology that we only had thousands of years later buried within strata of rock. And all of these people who appear on YouTube from time to time with films and videos of people in places where they shouldn't have been, with technology they shouldn't have been sporting at that particular time in history. These are all mysteries that are worth plumbing, aren't they?
It's the old human problem of trying to explain everything that we have that we have developed our own technology from the caveman of a few thousand years ago up to the stripy toothpaste and nuclear bombs of today. It doesn't necessarily mean that what happened before the caveman was more caveman. It could be that there was that famous cataclysm that virtually wiped out life on this planet.
And if you listen to the latest edition of my podcast at theunexplained.tv, there is a man called Bruce Fenton talking for an hour about exactly that. Marcus Allen, we're out of time. If people want to explore the world of Nexus Magazine, what's the website?
nexusmagazine.com. We'll put you right on the website. Just check in there. If you want to subscribe to Nexus, which is your civic duty, there are two types of people in the world, those who read Nexus and those who are about to. Check on there. Subscriptions sent from the UK to the UK, because we sell Nexus all over the world. We have to know where you are and where you want to receive it. So nexusmagazine.com will get you onto the Nexus Magazine website.
Well, because it's you, I think we can let you get away with the commercial. Marcus, thank you and good night. That's been it. Another edition of The Unexplained here, and more mysteries unpicked and probed here, which is our stock and trade, and we'll continue to do that in 1 week from now. Thank you very much to Cass Ho, my producer, Hayley Hayes, the setup producer on this show, without whom we couldn't do it, and Holly for technical production tonight. Paul Ross follows me through the night 1 to 5 here at Talk Radio. Don't miss him. My name is Howard Hughes. This has been The Unexplained, and until next we meet here, please stay safe, please stay calm, and above all, please stay in touch. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
So that was that. I get this bastard. How dare he do what he did? It was a fucking rip-off, didn't stand a chance. Fuck, I better show up quickly.
Cancelled.
Oh, fuck off. You are a cock-faced twat. Cock-faced twat, yeah. Heatsink. Heatsink. Bastards. Did you say that? Just as well you weren't here 10 minutes ago when the bastards annihilated me.
Stressed_ace high.
Stressed ace. Hello. I'm waving at the camera, I haven't got it switched on.
Acknowledged.
How are you doing? What you doing and where you doing it? I'm in the UK and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm playing Elite. This game.
Stressed_ace ha ha ha, I'm having trouble with this game, not long had it.
Ah, then you're in for a treat. Are you on PC or PlayStation or Xbox?
Stressed_ace I'm UK 2, I'm on Xbox One X.
Oh, very nice. One tip. Do you find yourself doing the loop of shame where you're gonna go for a
Stressed_ace been up all night trying to figure it out.
Yes, it's got a bit of a steep learning curve, but once you get it, it's just fantastic. I had a look at the stats tonight and I've put 3,000 hours into it and I only got it last year. But then again, I'm retired, so, you know, what else am I going to do?
Hypebot at stressed_ace is now following.
Oh, a follow, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I'm on most nights.
Stressed_ace I'm on sick arm so need to kill time.
Ah, yeah. Well, Elite will certainly do that for you. Or if there's any
Stressed_ace at **.
Yeah, well, as I say, Elite will certainly help you with killing time, mate. It's you can certainly do that. Best thing to do is get on the forums, or, like you're doing right now, watch silly old farts like me. Fanny about, so if there's anything you want to know about Elite, just ask away, and I'll do my best. Come on, drop out.
Stressed_ace trying to do black box missions only telling what system not which body in the system I need to find them at.
Ah, yes, that's what black box missions will do. The way to do them correctly is you go to the system that it's told you to go to, okay, and then you find the nav beacon, which will be around the sun somewhere, and you scan that. So you drop out of Super Cruise, then you physically target the nav point. Okay, you'll see it's like a little satellite, and when you scan that, it'll tell you where the black box is. It'll be around some planet somewhere, and then you can super cruise to that planet within that system, and it'll pop up as a mission objective as you fly around the planet. But you fly around the planet in super cruise. You don't obviously go onto the planet because they're never there. They're always somewhere around the planet that it says. If you've got an advanced, what is it?
Stressed_ace arg right, I'll do that.
If you've got an advanced discovery scanner, which you probably won't have if you've recently started the game because they're expensive.
Which are suitable for
Astra, shut up.
in hostile environments, including vacuum.
Stressed_ace only got basic.
Yeah, then you'll have to do that first method I said. So what you do is you go to the system, fly to the system that it said you to go to. Around the sun somewhere there'll be the nav point. Yeah, so you target the nav point, and then you drop out of Super Cruise. When you get close to it, it'll tell you when to drop out. Once you've dropped out of Super Cruise and you're in normal space, then you'll go to your navigation pane, and you'll see your nav point. In fact, I'm too far away. There it is. There it is in this system. There's the navigation beacon. That's what you're looking for. Target that. Yep. Then fly towards the nav beacon. When you get there, drop out of Super Cruise. When you drop out of Super Cruise, retarget again, and then hit your...
Stressed_ace I have 200,000 plus that enough for advanced.
I think the advanced is 1.5 million. So not quite. They're expensive. Say the basic one will scan, I think, up to 30,000 light seconds or 3,000 light seconds. Anyway, it's not very far. But the advanced one will do the entire system, and it will also read the nav beacon.
Stressed_ace well.
Yeah, it's expensive. But it's all doable. To get a couple of million, I've seen people do it in an afternoon to get just a couple of million starting from scratch, but they've known what they're doing. Which is a different case if you just bought the game and you've got 200,000. So what ship are you in?
Stressed_ace just bought third 150,000 plus forgot its name.
50,000. Let's have a look. What will that be? Hauler, perhaps? Or an adder? Adder 77,000 here.
Stressed_ace hauler.
Hauler. It's not a bad ship, but you can't do any combat in it. It's only got one hard point, so don't take anything on. Adder, on the other hand, is a capable ship. It's not bad at all. Cobra Mark III is a very good all-round ship as well. That's 300,000 though, and then it's probably going to be another 200,000 or 300,000 to A-rate it completely.
Stressed_ace I still have the Sidewinder.
Yeah, I mean at the minute I've got 26 ships. And I've played around with most of them and then gotten rid of them, or in my case some of these ships I use for specific tasks such as certain missions, well, the one I'm in at the minute, which is the Federal assault ship, which I sort of ignored the first time when I got up to it. Sort of ignored it, didn't think it was very good, but it's got certain hull characteristics which make it the hull very strong. So that's why I've turned it into a assassination machine. If you have a look at some of the missions I can get here, they are worth 3 or 4 million. I mean, this one I've just completed. What was that for? That was for 3.5 million. So as you see, I've got some other missions here. 3.3 million. But again, you know, you get them once you become elite. The payment sort of for certain missions rocket once you become elite. and that's all I'm doing at the moment. I sort of decide what kind of missions I'm going to do, and then I build a ship and then engineer it to within an inch of its life to do the job I wanted to do. There we go, look at that. 3.5 million for just taking out this one ship. I'll have that.
Stressed_ace any tips on what type of missions to do?
Yes, when you're first starting off and you've got the money you've got, you can do some bounty hunting, but it's that's probably the quickest way to make money. But unless you've done any bounty hunting before, it can be a little bit hazardous, because you can't take on just any ship. You have to be really picky. There's sites in certain systems called res sites, which are resource extraction sites, the sites where miners go. So it'll be on a ringed planet or a ringed gas giant, and they'll have these res sites, and basically what you do is you go into the res site and you wait for the police to turn up, and the police will scan people and they will find pirates in that system flying around, and they will start attacking those pirates. What you do is you tag that pirate, so you only need to hit it a couple of times and then back off, and you'll get the bounty for that ship. But you've got to be careful. Don't ever start a fight on your own, not on the ships that you've got, because the pirates will turn on you, and they'll either do it in a group, or he'll have some surprise weapons waiting for you. So what you do is you let the police find them first, and the police will start fighting at them. So these are the security services, or system security. You'll see them in the distance. You'll see a firefight going off, and all you've got to do is, watch and look at who they're shooting at. Then you take a couple of shots at them, and then scoot off as fast as you can. And what will happen is, when the security services have killed that ship, then you'll get flashing across your screen a bounty. So you'll get 22,000 or something like that. Then all you do is you go back to the station you came from and hand in the bounty vouchers. You get the money for it. You get the credits. So that's one of the easiest ways to do it. But look for res sites, hazardous resource extraction sites around ring planets, and only go for the low, what are they called? There's low, high, and hazardous. Never go into
Stressed_ace okay thanks. Gonna give it a try.
It's worth a try. It's worth a try. Be prepared. Always have a rebuy. What I mean by that is, always have enough cash so that if you do get killed, you can come back. And you'll see on that screen there, status, where you've got balance. I've got 1 billion, and rebuy cost. That's 4 million for this ship, but it's a big ship. Yours will be a lot lower, but make sure you've got at least that amount of credits available, because what happens is, if you get killed, as you probably know by now, you'll have been killed a few times, you get the chance to rebuy your ship back at a reduced cost. Just make sure you got that amount of credit, and then you can make as many mistakes as you want, and you will make mistakes, but it's a good hoot.
Stressed_ace okay will do. Cheers. Stressed_Asil pop back to your channel, let you know how it went if you're still live.
No problem, fella. Enjoy. That's what it's all about.
From landing pad, you are go for departure.
Landing gear retracted.
Astra, wake up.
Initiating.
System jump.
Astra online. Preparing for jump. Interstellar velocity at maximum. Exit destination confirmed. Arrival in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Incoming mission critical message.
I found my target. Heat sink. Heat sink. Astra, wake up. Heat sink. Heat sink. Deaf cow. sync. System jump.
Preparing for jump. Hyperspace. Checking systems now. Complete. Temperatures are at an acceptable level.
see. But I'm ready. I need to believe in that I'll work out what it meant.
You must submit a docking request before landing at the port.
Cause I'll do anything to love you. Love you. I'll do anything to love you. Love you.
On the slopes, Pompeii beneath, she lay above. And how she haunted our home, how she haunted our home. And you were a god in my eyes, above the clouds, above the skies. You were a god in my eyes, you were a god. You took me walking through the town, showed me the statues underground. Said just don't they look at peace. Sometimes I wish that was me. And I was the son you always had, tugging at your coat while you were sad. I was the son you always had. Yeah, I was the son you always had. Don't cry, hold your head up high. She wants you to, she wants you to. Just don't cry, hold your
Request approved. Cleared for landing on pad 4-1.
wants you to, she wants you to. Said stay in the car and wait. There's just some things I have to say.
Get you down.
The landing gear is down and locked.
So my father and my son, as you and she's begun, you'll lie patient by her side. Roses red, come lily white.
Ship is on the ground. Engaging docking restraints. Station services are at your disposal.
I was too young to understand. I was too young to understand. Flowers sleeping in my hand. I was too young to understand. I was too young to understand. Don't cry, hold
jump.
You have left the no-fire zone. This is traffic operations. Signing off.
Adjusting the jump. Frame shift now engaged. No anomalies detected. Key systems are at optimum levels, ready for exit.
In the same reckless city where great Antonio died on the island in the river with your mountain at its side, I came to scatter ashes of the bridges I burned, and I know the name of the song that I heard. Yeah, know the name of the song I heard. Like a moonlight mathematician, I subtracted my concerns and I multiplied my options and divided my returns. Sacrificed the angel who was tugging at my shirt. I was already claimed by the song that I heard. Yeah, already chained to the song I heard. From the corner of my eye, I caught the shadow of a girl, but my shoes were tied together and my face was in the dirt. Her gentle eyes said everything before she said a word. I knew I was changed by the song that I heard. Yeah, I knew right away by the song I heard. In the cult of desperation, we stayed just behind the curve. No one here admits we're getting more than we deserve. I was born first child, she was born a third. We were already named by the songs that we heard. Yeah, already claimed by the songs we heard. Did I make you out a phoenix from the ashes of a bird? Or did we build our palace and watch it as it burned? It's kind of like a lesson that had to be unlearned, like a fool maker, fall taker, forsaker, all right, earthquaker, soul shaker, soothsayer, moonbayer, sun slayer, yea sayer, mistaker, rattlesnaker. We're already changed by the songs we heard. In every corridor that shifted the maze, no single part of you is ever the same. Now we're so tired by the things we have seen, we've forgotten all the visits and dreams. Now I'm misunderstood. Here I stand undressed. Here I confess all my doubts.
crash. You piece of shit. Just when you think you're getting somewhere.
can see it in the red. When you lie awake at night, you convince yourself you're fine. It's alright, keep on drifting. The drugs keep in your head. Catch you falling from the sky. I keep asking myself why I stand by. Keep on drifting. Keep on drifting. Oh, I can feel it coming. You see it in your eyes. You see that you're not right. And oh, you're feeling something. You see it in your eyes. You see
Come on,
that
let's
you're
have this
not
mission.
right. You're not right. You're not right. You're not right. So tell me what you hold inside. Down the back streets of your mind. You're still lonely as a child, teary-eyed, kept on drifting. Ooh, kept on drifting. Oh, I can feel it coming. You see it in your eyes, see that you're not right. And oh, you're feeling something. You see it in your eyes, see that you're not right. You're not right. You're not right.
Come on, drop the mission for God's sake. Hey, like a twat.
So take my hand and hold on.
Oh, fucking hell, man.
Take my hand, don't let go. Cause oh, I can feel it coming. See it in your eyes, see that you're not right. And oh, you're feeling something. See it in your eyes, see that you're not right. 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 You're not right.
I've got bloody time as well. cheating there. Heat sink. Heat sink. Heatsink. You thieving little bastard. You thieving little fuckhole. Oh, I've had enough. Astra, you're a fucking twat. System jump.
Preparing for jump.
Fucking heard that alright, didn't you? Cheeky cow.
Frameshift now engaged. Scanning for anomalies. None detected.
You're my banner in the desert, the palm upon my brow. You're my medicine when I'm too weak to think, to speak to read. It's you holding me together, together. It's you holding me together, together. I'm strung out like words, an open book for you to read. I'll lay down my shields to reveal the truth of me. It's you holding me together, together. It's you holding me together, together. Your sunlight in my bones when I'm all
Well, time for bed, I think.
I'm not lonely when I'm alone.
Gear down.
The gear is down and locked.
Well, that's game over for me. I'll see you all tomorrow.
Landing checklist. It's good to have you with us, Commander.
Commander Happy Shrapnel, out.